Welcome back, everyone. Man, I am absolutely thrilled you're tuning in for today's explainer. If you're someone who just loves to learn efficiently and cut straight to the facts, you're in exactly the right place. Today, we're taking a really structured, deep dive into a fascinating medication that you have almost certainly heard of, but probably only in one very specific context. We're looking at Tadalafil, specifically low-dose daily Tadalafil, and we're going to examine its systemic ripple effects throughout the entire human body. So let's just dive right into this. Right off the bat, let me throw a slightly wild, provocative question your way. Can a pill that is world famous for treating erectile dysfunction actually protect your heart and fundamentally alter your systemic vascular health? I know, it sounds a bit like science fiction or maybe some late-night infomercial pitch, right? But as we look closely at the actual clinical data today, we're going to challenge this huge misconception that this medication is strictly for the bedroom.
Okay, here's our roadmap for this explainer. 1. Beyond the bedroom. 2. The science of vasodilation. 3. Daily versus on-demand dosing. 4. Blood pressure and heart health. And finally, 5. Risks and reality checks. We'll start at the cellular level and zoom all the way out.
Section 1. Beyond the bedroom. More than just ED. Let's briefly acknowledge Tadalafil's famous primary use and then quickly pivot to its broader applications. It's really fascinating to look at the official FDA-approved uses for Tadalafil. Obviously, yes, it's approved for erectile dysfunction, but it is also approved as a daily 5 milligram dose for benign prostatic hyperplasia, or BPH, to help relieve those annoying lower urinary tract symptoms, like a weak stream or waking up constantly at night to go. And honestly, even more remarkably, it's approved for pulmonary arterial hypertension. That's a super serious condition where the blood pressure in the arteries of your lungs gets dangerously high. Tadalafil literally relaxes the blood vessels in the lungs, which lowers that pressure and takes a massive strain off the right side of the heart. So right out of the gate, we're seeing health effects that extend way, way beyond sexual health. Section 2. The science of vasodilation. Zooming in. To really grasp how one drug can affect the penis, the prostate, and the lungs, we gotta look at the cellular machinery. The absolute most crucial point here is understanding exactly what this drug targets. Tadalafil is a PDE5 inhibitor. Now, PDE5, or phosphodiesterase type 5, is an enzyme, and its main job in your body is to basically terminate a specific signaling cascade by breaking down a molecule called cGMP. When cGMP gets broken down, the smooth muscles in your blood vessels construct. So PDE5 is essentially the enzyme responsible for tightening up your vascular system. Think of your blood vessels like a giant plumbing system. Your body releases nitric oxide, which creates that cGMP molecule, and that tells the smooth muscle cells in your vascular walls to relax and just open up the pipes. But then PDE5 comes along, breaks down the cGMP, and closes the pipes back up. By taking a PDE5 inhibitor like Tadalafil, you are actively blocking the enzyme that acts like a shutoff valve. The result? That nitric oxide signal stays active much longer, your smooth muscles stay relaxed, and your vascular pipes remain nicely open and dilated. Section 3. Daily versus on-demand. Steady-state therapy. Now that we've got the cellular plumbing down, let's look at how this is actually applied clinically. The difference in strategy between these two clinical approaches is night and day. The traditional on-demand dosing usually involves taking a larger 20 milligram pill in a short burst right before intimacy. It takes planning, it acts like a physiological roller coaster in your system, and because it's a higher dose, it's associated with a higher rate of adverse side effects. But on the flip side, we have the daily low-dose protocol. This is typically just 2.5 to 5 milligrams taken every single day. Within about 5 days, this actually builds up to a steady-state level in your bloodstream. So instead of those sudden short bursts, you're getting continuous, round-the-clock physiological benefits, keeping that PDE5 enzyme constantly in check. And the quality of life benefits from this continuous daily dosing are pretty profound. By decoupling the medication from the timing of intimacy, it completely eliminates that awful medication timing anxiety. It restores spontaneity, which clinical registries actually show significantly reduces depressive symptoms and performance distress. Plus, for guys dealing with comorbid enlarged prostate issues, this daily dose relaxes the smooth muscle in the prostate and bladder neck, often relieving those urinary symptoms in just 1 to 2 weeks. And get this, meta-analyses show this steady, daily approach actually has a lower overall incidence of adverse events compared to the high-dose, as-needed method. Section 4. Blood pressure and heart health, the ripple effect.
Okay, we've seen the micro-level vascular changes, but now let's zoom out. what happens to your entire cardiovascular system when you keep your blood vessels continuously relaxed?
We already know Tadalafil acts as a mild systemic vasodilator. But what does that actually mean for your blood pressure day to day? Well, clinical data shows the mean maximal decrease in blood pressure for Tadalafil compared to a placebo is typically very safe and quite modest. In healthy subjects, we're looking at a decrease of about 1.6 millimeters of mercury in supine systolic pressure and generally around 5 to 10 millimeters of mercury overall for most folks. It's a mild, stable reduction. It improves arterial compliance, but without inducing reflex tachycardia or making you dangerously dizzy.
Because of that improved arterial elasticity and the continuous support for your endothelium, researchers started looking at long-term cardiovascular outcomes. And wow, the data from large observational cohorts is absolutely staggering. In a retrospective analysis of over 8,000 men exposed to Tadalafil compared to 21,000 unexposed controls, those on Tadalafil had a 19% lower rate of major adverse cardiovascular events, or MACE. They had a 44% lower all-cause mortality rate and an incredible 55% lower cardiovascular mortality rate. Now let's pump the brakes for just a second. We have to be objective here. This is a retrospective observational study. That means it shows a massive association, not necessarily direct causation. There's almost certainly a healthy user bias at play here, meaning men actively seeking treatment might just be healthier overall, right? But even taking that into account, the physiological mechanisms of improved blood flow make these massive reductions incredibly compelling.
Section 5. Risks and reality checks. Staying grounded. Look, those numbers are exciting, for sure. But as focused learners, we always need to look at the full picture. First and foremost, let's be super clear. Tadalafil is not a magic bullet. While that observational data is amazing, it's absolutely not a substitute for standard cardiac medications. To prove it has its limits, just look at the recent Phase 3 clinical trials for Duchenne muscular dystrophy. Researchers really hoped that boosting nitric oxide signaling in skeletal muscle would slow the decline of walking ability in boys with this devastating disease. But over 48 weeks, Tadalafil completely failed to show any improvement over the placebo in preserving their walk distance. So it doesn't fix everything. Furthermore, no pill in the world can outwork a bad diet or zero exercise. Your everyday lifestyle habits remain absolutely paramount for your heart health. We also really need to talk about safety. While daily low-dose Tadalafil is generally very well tolerated, it can have common side effects. We're talking headaches, facial flushing, dizziness, maybe some back pain. But look closely at this left column here. This is literally life or death. Tadalafil is strictly contraindicated with nitrates or nitroglycerin. Period. Because both of these medications dilate your blood vessels, combining them can cause a sudden, severe, and potentially fatal drop in your blood pressure. You can never, ever mix these medications.
As we wrap things up today, I want to leave you with this really powerful quote from the clinical literature. Erectile dysfunction often appears 3 to 5 years before a heart attack, as an early sign of vascular damage. Think about it. The blood vessels in the penis are tiny. They are much smaller than your coronary arteries. So when systemic vascular disease begins, those plumbing issues are going to show up there first. It is, quite literally, the canary in the coal mine for your entire cardiovascular system.
Which brings us to our final thought. Is it time we stop viewing sexual health in complete isolation and actually start seeing it as a crucial window into our systemic cardiovascular health? If a low-dose daily medication can keep your vascular system relaxed, improve urinary function, and potentially show massive associations with lower cardiovascular mortality, it kind of entirely changes how we view this whole class of drugs, doesn't it? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep learning, stay curious, and I will see you next time.